everybody, and welcome to Cat Chat. I'm Kat, and I have two, not one, but two very special guests joining me today. So what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about films and theatre, because both of my guests today are filmmakers and theatre makers, producers, directors. Call them what you want, they'll tell you more in a second. Now, if you've noticed so far, I've been starting these videos off with a very corny joke. So the one I have for you today is, what film best goes with a pizza? The cheesy kind. Joining me today from the UK, we have Jasper Cresdee-Hyde. Yay! Welcome, Jasper.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. But from all the way across Europe, we have Isidora from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yay!
Hello, thank you for having me, Kat.
Thank you so much for joining me. Right, so tell us about your work. Jasper, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Where do I start? So I'm in my final year studying politics at the University of Cambridge. A 22-year-old writer, director in film and theatre. I made a couple of short films when I was younger. When I was sort of like 18, 19, 20, I wrote and directed a feature-length film called Tales from the Apocalypse, which used to be on Amazon Prime UK and is now under consideration for some film festivals in the UK. I co-wrote and co-directed a Doctor Who spoof at this year's Edinburgh Fringe Festival, Doctor Whom, and currently am president of the Cambridge University Film Association, so the society.
I want to talk about your work on festivals more, but let's first go to Isidora and you give us a little introduction.
Yeah, as you said, I'm from the other part of Europe. Yeah, a little less like a small country that doesn't give that much to the culture, but has a lot of talented filmmakers, by my opinion. And I study in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, film and theater directing. So my two films are now traveling in the festivals, regional and international, and I'm also like traveling with them currently. So that I'm pretty busy traveling right now. I'm happy with what I do, especially because it gives me the opportunity to work with different people, and to like, film is really a wide range of things that you have to know to make films, and wide range of people that you need to know. So I don't know, that's why I chose it. That's why it's my passion.
Absolutely, and I love that. And actually, I was thinking a lot about what both of you have in common and the differences. There's a lot of cultural differences, and I was looking at both of your projects as well, and your short films. There's a significant, I would say, difference in style. I always say, unfortunately, the best known Balkan films tend to be about the war, at least in the past few decades, or tend to be about something that's quite gloomy or quite sort of down and quite depressing in a way, but beautifully portrayed, and always from a very, very sentimental background, a very, very directed storyline. But Jasper, I mean, obviously coming from the UK, and where there are more opportunities to get involved with film and with theatre, but you do the complete opposite. You write comedies, I mean, you do serious documentary style things as well. But I mean, the films that you were mentioning, your radio plays that you've also written and produced, are also very, very centered around satire, comedy. And it's just really interesting to see how those two are very different styles. Could you tell us more about your comedies?
Yeah, so Doctor Who was a comedy, of course, spoof show, kind of like a narrative comedy. Then over the course of the lockdowns, me and like my sort of creative partners, we made some radio shows. So we made two superhero radio plays, one, The Adventures of Sharkman, and a sequel to that, Sharkman, the God Project, both of which are still available to listen to on YouTube. And then we also made a satirical news show called Tomorrow's News, which was like a fake news show essentially, and it was satirizing news, satirizing news culture, satirizing journalism, and politics and media, and etc. So yeah, it's interesting what you say about the different styles, because I suppose looking at all those projects from the outside compared with like the film Tales, the Amazon film, which is kind of like a coming of age movie and quite like sort of dramatic, melancholic, but also comedic. there is quite a big variation in tone and style and genre, and that kind of thing. But when I sort of consider all of those things and sort of think about them, I actually don't really see any differences at all, and I just sort of think of them all as the same, in the same ballpark. And then it's kind of like, oh wait, no, it's actually not at all. So I think the kind of connective tissue, I guess, is like, I remember back when I did film studies A level many years ago now, one of the films we had to watch was Werner Herzog's Grizzly Man, which is a documentary about sort of like this guy who went to live with bears, and he like filmed himself, and obviously like after not too long the bears killed the guy, but like all this video footage was still left of like him living with these bears and like talking to the bears.
Comedy.
So, yes, well, and then again, well, so like Werner Herzog sort of like takes the footage and basically sort of finishes the film and like narrates it. And the thing he talks about there is, oh, this kind of like I think he calls it like an emotional truth or something like that, which kind of he's sort of looking for in his filmmaking, like a kind of core to a film. And I think that's something that always kind of stuck with me as the kind of connective tissue behind things, that the sort of format and genre and tone and style of all the different pieces of work and kind of in general, in my mind at least, always tends to sort of fall by the wayside. And it's actually about kind of looking for some kind of like core thesis, I guess, or core like message you're trying to communicate to the audience, or core kind of like worldview, philosophy that you're trying to sort of espouse. I guess I've like tried to stay along the same kind of thematic wavelengths throughout my work. So I suppose in that sense, I see them all as very connected and very much part of the same universe.
Yeah.
But looking at it from the outside, it is all very different. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the concept. I love that phrase, emotional truth. I think that's something that, I mean, you, Isidora, can definitely prescribe to your own films. I mean, both your first film, Backup Grandmother, or Granny, that's a beautiful short film about your grandmother. And then as well, your most recent film, Why Don't You Dance, has definitely, I would say, has an emotional truth behind it that I think quite beautifully plays with the cinematography and the way you created that. Could you sort of maybe go into more detail about that?
First of all, thank you for all the compliments. I mean, I made Granny before the academy. Granny was my first try to make a film, and something that motivated me to even try to start the academy. So I filmed my grandmother's, I mean, like some kind of reconstructions and conversations with my grandmother and her life that is somehow connected to the history of Sarajevo and of the people here. It was very personal, and also I knew nothing about filmmaking. I just took my camera and made it. And my family was happy for that because it was for her 80th birthday and I was 18, and it was somehow, it had some kind of sentimental value for us at the time. And that, I mean, from even at that time, I knew that I'm interested in the filmmaking that produces emotion. I'm not that into commercial filmmaking, although I would try a lot of things. I mean, I would try anything that is offered to me to work in my field, of course. But I am more influenced by European directors and that aesthetic that is kind of more going to the art film. Or although I like all different kind of films. And yes, also about Why Don't You Dance, it was adaptation of Carver's story. Of the same name, and it was our task on the second year to adapt a short story into film medium and also in a theater medium. So it was very interesting to try, because he's a very specific writer and he has that kind of very fragile sensibility about him. To make that into the film medium, to translate it into visual language, it was very it was a challenge for me, and it was also a great responsibility. So yes, that's a little about that.
But I quite like, I was looking at both of your most recent projects, and Why Don't You Dance is very, it's got beautiful cinematography. I knew every part of the city where you were filming, but I couldn't recognize it, and you just showed it in a very beautiful, very minimalist way. Whereas Jasper, you play with colors. I mean, I'm talking specifically about the radio plays, which obviously is very different. But even in your shorts, there's so much just stunning visuals that pop out onto the screen, and it's a complete sort of. I would say that they're two completely different aesthetics, and that both work in their own way really well. But like obviously for tomorrow's news, but mostly for Sharkman, and that whole series had beautiful visuals and art within it.
Yes, yes. The Sharkman art is genuinely brilliant. I mean, the designer Emily Shen, who's also in Cambridge, she's a graphic artist, poster designer sort of thing. She's absolutely brilliant and makes the best posters and artworks for shows and radio plays and stuff. And we were tremendously lucky that she said yes, and she's been a regular collaborator, and she designed the Doctor Who poster as well, which again was similarly bursting with color and so like explosive and exciting. And putting that up all over Edinburgh was very like, you know, boom, you know, Doctor Who. It's great. You're always trying to communicate a sense of like excitement, so the visual identity of the work, as it were, should, obviously depending on what the work is, but at least for those shows, which are like big kind of blockbuster entertainment kind of thing, should convey that sense of like bigness and explosiveness sort of thing. But yeah, and then I think because I've always kind of tended towards those kind of like big and explosive things, obviously with Tales being like a 90-minute drama about the end of the world.
Well, the film that came before Tales was Unstuck.
Yes,
that got over 40,000 views on YouTube. I mean, that's amazing.
Thanks.
And
yeah, it's what,
you know, I mean, what was that, 2016? So you were 16, 17, and 40,000 views on YouTube.
So I think all those views come from so because the title of the video, so if you search Unstuck film, it will probably show up. But the title of the film is like Unstuck, and then in brackets I kind of put some like keywords, and it's like time travel sci-fi film or something like that. And I think it got piggybacked on like YouTube's recommended onto like another kind of like time travel short film or sci-fi short film that was on YouTube, and there was loads of people going to watch it. So it was like quite rapidly grew, like over a couple of months. It was just these constant spikes. But funnily enough, actually, because the film, I mean, I don't really want to spoil it in case people want to go watch it on YouTube, but the film, calling it a time travel film is true in a sense. And I think there are a lot of people who are expecting a very explicit, the sort of Back to the Future style time travel film, and they were very annoyed when they actually got what the story was, and they leave. So if you actually go down to the Unstuck comment section, you can see many angry comments being like, "Oh, this isn't a time travel film," and it's like, well, it is. You know,
we love angry comments on
like
YouTube.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that was quite a low key film in the sense there was like only a couple of characters, and it's very sort of melancholic aesthetic and very kind of like small focus kind of thing. I'd love to make something similar. I mean, you describing Granny, like I'd love to make something like that eventually. That sounds amazing, like interweaving the personal and the historical, the real world like that in a film. I think that's something that only film that only a medium like film can do, really.
I always like to ask other filmmakers when it's the question of a personal story and like something that is your family, and you are like somehow showing to the wider audience your private life. And I somehow, even when I write fiction, I never know, I have always problems with where is the line. I mean, because this is our job, but it is of course our self-expression.
I don't think to the same extent that that you did in your film, of like sort of interweaving the documentary stuff. And actually that links back to the Werner Herzog thing. I remembered it. I looked it up. It's not the emotional truth, it's the ecstatic truth that he talked about, and that was specifically about that veracity, the kind of like interplay between real life and the fictional and the sublime, or you know, whatever language you want to use. So specifically for that kind of documentary filmmaking. But I think I agree that like even when writing fiction, real life comes into it, and I think, I don't know, I think because the at least in the past couple of years, that the work has always been explicitly fictional stuff. Like it's always high concept sci-fi fantasy things. It's been very easy to sort of create characters from scratch, or like obviously create characters that have like hints of people that I know, but are, you know, characters that you would never ever in a million years be like, oh, that's me. But funnily enough, I do actually very much relate to what you're saying, in that for many years now, I've tried at various points, I've tried writing like variations of a kind of like coming of age TV show, like a sitcom drama comedy kind of thing, about like, you know, students at school, and like sort of that fresh meat in betweeners, sex education style, you know, that kind of genre, very much based on like my own childhood and upbringing, and like friendships and experiences, and just like trying to actually like adapt stuff that actually happened. And it was incredibly hard, and I've never been able to do it. So I'd write all these drafts and they'd just be terrible. I'd almost feel bad about the adaptation process. So I'd be writing a show that has like 16 main characters, because that was actually my friendship group. And it's like, well, this is just ridiculous. Like I can't actually do this, but I'd feel bad about cutting anyone or amalgamating people. So yeah, I think, well, at least for me, I think what that experience has shown is that it kind of leads to a bit of a dead end, unless you're willing to take, unless you're sort of like emotionally prepared to take some very, very serious liberties with what you've actually lived.
Yeah, I think that I think that actually we are always somehow influenced by where we live and the films that are made around us. And I come from a country that is we make low budget films. And even when we make something of a higher budget, even it's not high on the global level, but for our country higher, it's a long way of producing. And people it seems to me that directors always choose something that is extremely important to them, because it takes a lot of time to make a film. And if you're going to make it for 10 years, it has to be something crucial for you. And I think that somehow it influenced my way of thinking too, because we don't have a sci-fi films. We can have some variations of it in a low budget manner, but those high concept films are not, we don't have even an industry that is completely made. We are like enthusiasts that are making something out of system. And I think it's very interesting how the situation in a country can actually influence your personal style and your way where you go with filmmaking.
But it's really interesting also, because you've mentioned like in-betweeners, sex education, etc. And I know that like everybody in Bosnia will also have at least heard of, if not watched, but probably also watched. It's the whole thing of, I can't actually think of, because also I think it's important to mention, and I don't know if that was clear or not, but Isidora's films tend to be in Bosnian. And so that also adds the cultural barrier that Isidora was talking about, of if Jasper, you sit and write a coming of age sitcom or drama series, it's kind of been done. And although your experiences are so unique to you and to your friendship group and to your high school or whatever setting you've decided on, they're variations on a theme. And the theme that I mean, America's taken over, the UK has completely sort of readapted, and they keep sort of playing off each other to create new things, but it's the same concept. Whereas I think actually, I mean, that makes that genre very popular here, and if you made something that was a hit, it would be a proper hit. Whereas I think in Bosnia, if you made something like that would actually be completely new and completely innovative, even if it were in Bosnian or Serbian, Croatian, or any of the languages of the peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
But in general.
No, but it's actually quite interesting to see, because there are lots of sitcoms in Bosnia, but they're very Bosnian, and as they should be. I think it would be silly to try and recreate Friends in Sarajevo. Just not the same type of humor, not the same type of lifestyle. But it's interesting to see how you have very unique styles to yourselves and to your cultures and to the environment you've grown up in, but that there are enough differences that it can't really be replicated if you were to swap styles, for example. What I wanted to mention, because we've talked about the actual projects you've worked on, Isidora, I know that you've just come back home from a festival and you're about to go to another festival. So where are you going to be soon?
So I was in one festival where we won an award, and on the second
congratulations.
festival, Thank you. And now I'm going to Hungary on Alexander Trauner Film Festival. I honestly spent last year very unhappy because of quarantine and all those things. I mean, it wasn't a creative environment to someone doing this job. I mean, you're not with people, you are not seeing anything around you. I write my stories from the things that I see around myself. And when all that I see is my room and my mother, it's very hard to write anything. I mean, yes, so good luck to our film in Hungary.
Well, hopefully by the time this comes out, you will have already been and won an award. You know what, we've talked about lots of your projects and your processes and the actual films and shows themselves, but I really, really, really want to play a game with you guys. Real talk. Get it? Like real talk. Anyway, you guys are going to have a chat. The aim of the game is to introduce as many references to films of any genre, any kind, popular films or popular characters or popular lines, quotes from movies. And each one will get you a point, and I will try to actually pay attention and pretend I know what references they are. So, try and do as many as possible. The one with the most will win. I am going to keep a tally. You know what? Okay. I'm going to allow songs as well. I feel like it's too hard with just films. To give you a little taste there, I was walking down Notting Hill the other day and it was just like walking on sunshine. It was absolutely amazing. It was like skyfall, like it was just falling down. Right, that was terrible. I hope you're much better at this than I am. We're going to start with Jasper and go.
Isidora, how did you feel when you got your film into film festivals and you snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat with submitting, you know, having to pay to all these to submit to all these festivals? You know, you had to do a bit of a bank job, but ultimately it was, you know, part of you wishes it was just like a free guy, but alas, it was not. How you know, how did that make you feel?
I felt like a Superman. So Jasper, what did your Eye of a Tiger think of this year's Oscars?
My answer, in my state of an eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, and not actually getting to watch the Oscars, my recollection is somewhat not limitless, but rather limited. So what happened at the Moonlight? No, that was a couple of years ago. So how did I feel? B movie, that's what I felt. What do you envision yourself doing in the future? Do you envision yourself going Back to the Future, or Back to the Future Part 2, or Back to the Future Part 3, or something in the past that is potentially a film title?
Well, my main goal is to say hello to you from the other side of the world. So yeah, I would like it to be Back to the Future 5, something completely new, something fresh. I would like to enter the void. In which country would you go to make films? And I mean, which cinematography would make you feel like you're lost in translation?
I think I would go to Chicago, America. Potentially, you know, I would go with my friend Mr. Smith to Washington. Yes, I would say Chicago. Okay, right. So you know, you've got your friends, right? Who's your favorite friend out of all your friends? You know, it could be your friend Shrek. It could be your mates, Luke Skywalker. It could be Scarlet Witch. You know, all your buds that you have, who you see on a regular basis, or possibly, yes. Who's your favorite?
Oh my God. I mean, this is really hard. Okay, I wanted to say to Jasper, I'll give him an offer he can't refuse, to choose one spot, to one night on Earth. Choose one spot on Earth where you could just sing.
Okay. Would you describe, you know, when you're kind of like assessing yourself and like, you know, assessing your character kind of thing, would you would you describe yourself as someone, or actually no, like when you're assessing your friend's characters, you know, would you say that he's a man of steel, or would you say he's more of a dark knight?
I'd say he's a Superman.
You know, Dodson, I know you're a good fella, but I'm getting aware to go from your questions, so I'm just gonna quit.
Well, I think we can safely say that Jasper won. And
the winner takes it all. The winner takes it all.
Yeah, it's too late now.
It's not.
I have to say, we're both drowning worse than the Titanic. But thank you so much for playing. Jasper, you win the prize of knowing you won. Yay!
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I will treasure it forever.
Isidora, thank you for playing. Regardless of who won or who lost, you're both winners because you're both doing incredibly with your work, and I want to wish you both the best of luck with every future project. And if you want to see any of the projects, you can either check out some of them on YouTube or contact both of my guests directly via the links below. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everybody for watching Cat Chat. I am Kat, and please do all of the stuff below where you subscribe and do all of the random stuff. Bye.